So today I'll be continuing with my schedule discussion and point spread prediction videos. Today I'll be doing Auburn. So Auburn is a team that I think has a bright future uh, because I like Hugh Freeze as a coach. He's a coach that I'm very familiar with because I'm an Ole Miss fan. He coached there for 5 years, and he did some good things there uh, at Ole Miss. I'll never forget when he beat Nick Saban 2 years in a row, Mm, and he got them mm, into two New Year's Six bowl games during that time. Uh, and I think that uh, he'll at some point in the future have Auburn to where they can compete to win an SEC championship. Just uh, I don't really think it's going to be this year because Auburn last year uh, they were competitive against the top three teams in the SEC. They lost to Georgia by 7. They lost to Ole Miss by 7, and then they only lost to Alabama by 3. So, uh, uh, they were only 6-6 last year. But if they would have won all three of those close games, they'd have been 9-3. Uh, and uh, they mm, were really good at running the ball last year and probably will be again. And I thought that overall they played fairly well on defense. Not great, but uh, I think they were a little above average defensively last year. Uh, and uh, they had that blowout loss to New Mexico State right before they played in the Iron Bowl that made no sense. Uh, that kind of stuff I think will be better this year. I don't really think they'll have games where they just don't even seem to show up like they did last year in that one. Uh, and they were one of the only two teams last year that was able to run the ball well against Alabama. Uh, I was impressed how they did run the ball against them uh, in that game. And uh, they hired uh, Texas A&M's defensive coordinator, uh, and I think that was a good hire. Uh, he did pretty well with their defense these past couple of years, and I'm familiar with him too because before he was their defensive coordinator, he was Ole Miss's defensive coordinator. Um, and then I saw that Hugh Freeze is going to be taking over offensive play calling. Uh, and usually I uh, would be against a head coach calling plays himself, but uh, at this time that may have been the right thing to do. Uh, mm, just the problem with them last year, and I think is probably going to be a problem again, is their passing game. It was terrible last year, one of the worst passing situations in the country. They ran a two quarterback offense. They used one to throw and then one to run, and uh, they were both terrible at throwing. Mm, And uh, they're one that they used to do most of the throwing is coming back this year and is expected to be their starting quarterback again. Uh, and they didn't have even one wide receiver on their team last year that I think has a future in the NFL, and looks like that could be the same thing this year. Uh, so with that, and then the same quarterback that was horrible coming back, I really think they're going to struggle to throw the football again. And if they're struggling to throw the football that much, I don't think that they can be great this year. Uh, but I still think they have a good chance to improve on last year's record. So, uh, some good things about this schedule is they don't have to play LSU or Ole Miss now that divisions are gone in the SEC. Uh, and uh, on this schedule, they have 3 games in the non-conference that I'll say should be easy wins after what happened in that one game last year that should have been an easy win. I guess I won't call them for sure wins, but Alabama, A&M, New Mexico, and Louisiana Monroe should all be easy wins. And then uh, they have a Power Four opponent in the non-conference, California, and uh, that won't be a given win for Auburn, but it's one that they should be able to handle. So they should uh, uh, be 4-0 in the non-conference this year. Uh, mm, and they get a good conference opener this year, home against Arkansas. Mm, That's a game that they really need to win because Auburn should be better than Arkansas this year, and they're playing at home. Mm, and uh, they get 8 home games this year. That's one more than most teams get. And Auburn has one of the best home field advantages. They're really tough to beat at home, so that could really help them in improving their record this year. Uh, they get their first 5 games at home after Arkansas. They have a home game against Oklahoma, and that will be their toughest game at that point. Oklahoma is probably going to be better than Auburn. Uh, and then uh, they have after that a road game against Georgia. Georgia, uh, other than Alabama, is their biggest rival. They're used to playing them every year, uh, but they've really only had any success against Georgia when it's been played at Auburn, and it's going to be played at Georgia this year. So that's a game that they're probably going to lose. I'll go ahead and tell you. That's a really tough 2 games in a row. And then really, this is the tough 4 games in a row uh, uh, because then after that they have road games against Missouri and Kentucky. Uh, the good news is they get a week off in between Georgia and Missouri there. Mm, that's a good time for a week off. Mm, uh, because Missouri, that's going to be a really tough game. Uh, and then so is Kentucky. Uh, that will be their toughest part of the season. Those 4 games in a row, uh, and then after that they get Vanderbilt at home. That's a game that Auburn's got to win. They'll be much better than Vanderbilt. Uh, mm, mm. and then their second week off comes not at a good time after Vanderbilt and before Louisiana Monroe. Would have been much better to have it uh, between uh, either Oklahoma and Georgia or Missouri and Kentucky. Uh, and then uh, that's a tough way to end the season there in the last 2, Texas A&M and then Alabama on the road. Alabama, Auburn's only really had success in pretty much just when it's been at Auburn, but it's at Tuscaloosa this year. That's going to be a really tough one, probably one that they're going to lose. So, mm, Texas A&M is one that they'll have a chance in, though, uh, especially with it being at home. But it's not going to be an easy one. Uh, So now I'll move on to the prediction. Mm, so if you haven't seen how I do the point spreads, you can go back and watch my first video of them, Ohio State, and I explained it in that one. But The games in the green are games where I think Auburn will be favored to win by a blowout, 20 or more points. Mm, and then uh, the games in the blue are games where I think they'll be favored to win by double digits, 10 to 19 points. So not a close spread, but not a blowout spread. Uh, and then the games in the purple uh, are games where I think that they'll be favored to win by about a touchdown, 6 to 9 points. Uh, mm, and then uh, mm, the games in the pink are games where I think they'll be favored to win by about a field goal, 1 to 5 points. Mm, and then the games in the gray are games where I think they'll be about a field goal underdog in, so 1 to 5 points. And then the games in the yellow are games where I think they'll be about a touchdown underdog in, 6 to 9 points. And then the games in the orange are games where I think they'll be a double digit underdog in, so 10 to 19 points. Mm, so there are uh, three games here where I think there'll be a blowout favorite in Alabama A&M, New Mexico, and Louisiana Monroe. And then there are uh, one game where I think there'll be a 10 to 19 point favorite in Vanderbilt. And then uh, there are two games where I think there'll be a about a touchdown favorite in mm, uh, California and Arkansas. And then there's one game where I think there'll be about a field goal favorite in Texas A&M. Mm, mm, and uh, there are uh, one game uh, where I think there'll be about a field goal underdog in Kentucky, and then there's uh, two games where I think there'll be about a touchdown underdog in Oklahoma and Missouri, and then two games where I think there'll be a double-digit underdog in Georgia and Alabama. Uh, so uh, Alabama A&M, Auburn should be favored in that one by close to 50 points. It should be a big blowout. And then uh, New Mexico and Louisiana Monroe, uh, maybe like 40 points. The spread will be. Mm, those should be big blowouts also. And then Vanderbilt, Auburn should be favored in that one by a couple of touchdowns. It should be favored by at least 14, maybe even 15 or 16 points. Mm, and then California, I'd say Auburn would be about an 8 point favorite in that one. Uh, and then uh, probably they'd be favored by about 6 points against Arkansas. Mm, mm. And then mm, Texas A&M. Uh, uh, I was at first going to put that one as a toss up, which means there wouldn't be a favorite, but I decided because it said Auburn to put it in the pink because uh, I think they might be favored by a point uh, in that one. Uh, you know, at Texas A&M, their roster looks better than Auburn's, but uh, they lost their whole coaching staff from last season. They fired their head coach. They lost their offensive coordinator, and then they lost their defensive coordinator to Auburn. And then uh, Hugh Freeze is a year ahead at Auburn of the new coach at Texas A&M. So don't really know that A&M is going to be much, if any, better than Auburn this year. Uh, mm, and Kentucky, uh, Auburn would probably be about a 3 point underdog in that one. Maybe just because it's on the road. If it was at Auburn, Auburn might even be favored. Uh, and uh, mm, Oklahoma. Mm, uh, I think that Auburn would be probably about a 6 point underdog in that game. Uh, mm, and then probably about 6 points against Missouri. They'd be an underdog, and uh, mm, and then uh, Georgia. I know in the Georgia video I said they'd probably be about mm, a 14-point favorite over Auburn, but I actually think with this being at Georgia, Georgia will probably be favored by about 17 points in this game. Mm, And then uh, Alabama. mm, This is close to being in the yellow. I just put it in the orange because it's at Alabama this year. Uh, mm, I think probably Auburn will be about a 10-point underdog in that one. Uh, so that will be it with this video. And please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching another video. And I'll be back with another one of these in a couple of days.